Welcome to Aspen Leading Edge. I'm Patty Roberts from St. Mary's University School of Law, and today's guest is Sam Panarella. And he was, until very recently, the Dean of the Law School at University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. And so let's start with your recent experience as the Dean.
Yeah, hi Patty. Thank you. And thanks for having me on. So, as you said, I just left my deanship and I was there for 3 years. So long enough to have had, I think, a pretty fulsome experience. And I mentioned to you before we started recording, I love the job. So one thing I want to accomplish in this conversation is and I did a LinkedIn post to this effect because I think it's really important, is to say people who want to be law deans should try to be law deans. It's a great job.
It is a great job. And your law school will be looking, right?
Yes, they will be. They'll be searching this fall. My predecessor, Eric Mitnick, is my successor, but on an interim basis, and they are searching. And so please, it's a great job and a great place. And I'll talk a little more about that. But I think it's important because, one of the things that you hear a lot about how hard of a job it is, right? And I remember when I was a faculty member, I remember saying to my wife, there's one job I'd never wanted to be a law dean, right? And she, of course, never let me forget that I became a law dean. And I said that because I just had this perception of the job that is not fully accurate at all, actually. I sort of saw the hard parts of it, or what looked like the hard parts of it, but I didn't see before I was in the seat all the incredible, great parts of it. It is a job that is, yes, challenging, yes, busy, but again, no job worth having isn't those things, frankly. And your ability to impact the lives of the student body and the faculty and the staff, and to make a difference in the world, to do your small part for the rule of law and for democracy, which I think are particularly important these days, those issues. There are few jobs that you can have a bigger impact than being the dean of a law school. So I want to get that out there because, again, I think there are so many really, really talented faculty members and folks outside of academia who would be and can be great law deans. And I particularly think of people who might not be traditionally thought of for those roles. And we need more diversity in our law deans. I want people to if it works for their plans and what they want, they should put themselves forward for these positions, right? Because I think they're great jobs, and there are only a couple hundred of them. So,
That's right. 197, I think.
That's the count. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, though, because in the Dean tenure study that I recently concluded, one of the things that was really interesting was the number of faculty members and some non-traditional candidates who said, yeah, I never thought about being a law dean, but so-and-so said to me that I should consider it, or somebody said I was doing a great job as the associate dean or as the interim dean, something like that. And so you're right. I think we do need really committed and talented people in these roles because they do have such an impact, and they turn over about a quarter of them every year. So 40 to 50 new positions. So if you're listening and you were wondering if you should apply for a dean position, this is your message. Yes,
absolutely. And if you want to, and I really mean this, call me, email me. I'm happy to talk to anybody who's interested in the role. I'd be more than happy to chat with you about it. It's a great job.
That's great. Thanks, Sam. So you were there for 3 years as dean, and tell us a little bit about what you enjoyed most, what you're most proud of that you and your team accomplished in that time. Let's hear about those things.
Yeah, thank you. So I think, and again, it might sound a little cliche, but I mean, really, I enjoyed the students. I mean, really, at the end of the day, that's what we're there for. And they're endlessly interesting and, yes, challenging, and you're right. But if you get, and again, as a dean, and Patty, you know this very well, unfortunately, one of the things that was hard about becoming a law dean from being a law professor is I had less face time with the students, right? Which when I was teaching them, I taught contracts. At a small law school, I taught all of them, right, their first year. So I got to know every law student in the University of Montana. I knew every one of them, right? As a dean, you don't get as much of that, and you have to sort of look for it, and I did, and find opportunities. And they are a public law school, the only public law school in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and have very clear mission to serve a community and a cohort that is underserved or has been underserved in the Commonwealth. And that mission was why I took the job. And these students, many of whom law school was far from a foregone conclusion in their lives, right? Many of whom find themselves surprised to be in law school, never thought they could, be a lawyer. Just the amount of energy and enthusiasm and nerves and uncertainty and imposter syndrome and all the things. And I'm a first generation college student who, is the luckiest person in the world and never thought I would ever go to law school. Couldn't imagine this life that I've had. So I know that feeling and I understand that. So getting the chance to, again, sort of lead a law school and really try to make sure, as much as I was able to, that we were living our mission every day. Right. That we really, one of the things I talked to the faculty, by the way, I hate when deans say my faculty, they're not mine, the faculty and the staff about was this idea of centering students and thinking about that rather than the adjective of being student centered, which everyone says they are, and they should, actually the verb of centering students and thinking about in everything we do, thinking about how it's serving and not serving our students. Not to say that every decision is made solely on how it benefits or doesn't, because there are many things that, as you know, that there are a lot of other considerations, but that they're always centered in what we think about. So what am I proud of? I think we did a hard thing when I was there. When I started, I had, I'm an old lawyer, so I had my legal pad and I wrote to do at the top of it, a yellow legal pad. I still have it somewhere. Anyway, it ended up being 39 pages long by the time I left. Most of it crossed out, thank goodness. But one of the first things at the top of that list was our curriculum, which had an incredibly heavy required load for the students. And I thought too heavy. That was my supposition coming in. I thought students needed a little more freedom to explore their interest. And also, we had and have a bar pass challenge at UMass. And I thought it was important that we found ways in our curriculum to support those students that we could identify pretty early on. And we could identify them, and every law school can, really on first semester grades. There's some really good information there to tell you who's at risk, not who's going to fail the bar, but who's most at risk of failing the bar.
Absolutely.
It's finding opportunities to make sure that we are supporting those people as best we can. And I view that as a really almost a sacred obligation for a public law school. When you're admitting some number of students, are not coming with all of the pedigree and the prep schools and all the things that are a huge advantage, those privileges. A lot of our students didn't have those. So anyway, so my first year, I just kind of, took some time to look around, talk with faculty, think about what we were doing, how we were doing it. In my second year, I kicked off a curriculum reform project, right? And said, let's look at our curriculum from take it down to the studs. It's first principles. Let's look at the whole thing. Let's be open to everything. Let's just talk about it. What are we doing? What can we do better? What can we change? What should we keep doing? Keep, start, stop, all the stuff. So over the course of a year, long story short, we revamped our entire curriculum. We took out 25% of the required, number of courses. We built in a whole academic success program with courses and programs, and we made room for that in our curriculum, and we freed up space for students to pursue their interests. And we'll see, there's a lagging, right? We'll see how it impacts bar pass. That's going to be a few years from now, right?
Right. Yeah.
3 years through. I feel like it's going to really help. I'm confident of that. What I'm proud of, Patty, what I'm really, really proud of is that we did that with a unanimous faculty vote. And as
that's incredible.
Not easy to do.
No. Just the
Right.
fact that you undertook this as a new dean and you took it down to the studs. That's amazing. And you accomplished that in a year with a unanimous faculty vote. Incredible.
Yeah. And that's a testament. Again, that's not me. That's a testament to a faculty who was bought in and committed and knew going in. And I said this out loud at our first meeting, everyone's going to sacrifice. And if we do this right, no one's going to be completely happy, right? Which is a weird thing to say, but
so true. Yeah.
Every ox is going to get gored to one degree or another. Let's recognize that. And let's understand that we're going to need to sacrifice. And to the faculty's enormous credit, they did, right? And none of it would happen. As you know, people over-index on the importance of a law dean, right? We're important, but if the faculty and the staff and the students aren't willing to play ball, I don't care how great of a leader you are, you're not going to get anything done. Right.
That's for sure. Yeah.
So I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of, and I said to the faculty at the end after the vote, I said, look, we did a really hard thing and I'm super proud of us for doing it. And so that's one of the things I'm super proud of. Yeah.
That's really terrific. And fingers crossed, I hope that it has a great positive impact on your students when they take the bar. Mm-hmm. It is strange that you can make dramatic changes in your law school and you still won't see the impact for like 3 years.
It is. I'm an impatient person, so it drives me crazy. I want to know that it's.
I know. One thing you also did that I remember being a little envious of and so impressed by is you started a summer program in Portugal.
Yeah.
So I think the only one, right?
Yeah.
With U.S. Law School.
I think that might be right, as far as I know. Yeah, and that came about. So when I was at the University of Montana and I was a law professor there, I also ran an institute called the Max Baucus Institute, and I was was the founding executive director of that, along with Senator Baucus, of course. Senator Baucus was a longtime U.S. Senator from Montana and also the ambassador to China under President Obama. At any rate, one of the things we did was that we created a bunch of programs in China. We would bring students from America, from the Rocky Mountain West to China, and it was just like life-changing for the students. It was such a cool experience for them, and we'd go to law schools and we'd do comparative law. Then I got to UMass, and I thought we didn't have anything like that. And this goes a little bit to my children have gone to fancy schools and fancy law schools, and I've seen all the opportunities that they had, which I didn't go to fancy schools, so I actually didn't really understand how many opportunities, how fortunate these young people are who it's a smorgasbord, right? It's just unbelievable amount of things that are available to them kind of for the asking. And that's not true for a lot of students who don't go to those schools that have billion-dollar endowments, et cetera. And that bothers me, right? I mean, wonderful for my children, but there are so many students who don't have those opportunities. And I got to UMass and I'm like, our students who are interested, deserve the opportunity to go have an experience, go overseas, study comparative law, right? So I was really insistent that we look for those opportunities because a lot of students told me, well, I'd like to, but only students who are at fancy law schools get to go to Portugal for the summer. That's like fancy law school thing. And I was like, no, that's not true, right? That shouldn't be true. And again, I got to give a ton of credit to the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. There's a big Portuguese population in southern Mass where the school is, the really, really vibrant community there. And so that was part of me saying, we really should do Portugal because it's a big community here and really important for us. And this is amazing. The Portuguese Study Center on main campus essentially funded 90% of the program. So our students paid basically about 10% of the cost to go, which made it affordable for any student who wanted to do it. And
that's so awesome.
Amazing, right? And again, I had nothing to do with that. That was just really an investment from the school, which I was really happy about, but then allowed students who, again, would not otherwise have had the opportunity to get themselves to Portugal and to sit in a classroom and learn about comparative law. And it's ongoing. I think there might be there right now, actually, but yeah, and I hope it continues because it's really important.
Very cool. We have something similar here. We have a large first-gen population, majority Hispanic population. And, a lot of these students had not been out of the country before. And we have a program started in Innsbruck, Austria 40 years ago. This is the 40th summer. And so many of our graduates have had great experiences there, and some of our faculty that they have significant scholarship funds for those students who can't afford it. So we're sending off a new batch in a week and a half, and I'm going to go this summer to meet with our alumni. We're having an alumni reunion too, but it is life-changing for many of the students who attend. So I applaud your law school for starting that program. And what a pretty place, Portugal, to do that in.
Pretty nice. Yeah. Lisbon's not a bad place to hang out for a couple of weeks. I'll tell you that. I gained a couple pounds each time I went there, but it was all good. Lots of good eating.
That's great. Before we leave your law school experience, you left it, I'm sure, in great shape, but what should people be looking for UMass Law School to be on the trajectory towards? You've changed the curriculum, you had a new summer program, you have some academic support. What will people see in the coming year?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So one of the things that occurred when I was the dean is I traveled, unsurprisingly, a lot around the Commonwealth and around New England and meeting people, talking about the law school, et cetera. And it was not uncommon for people to ask me, especially in my first year or two, kind of what my goals were, what my vision was for the law school. Very good question. And some people would ask me and they would couch it by saying, I kind of assume that you're hoping to be like at the level of a Boston, BC law or Boston law, or, and those are, by the way, fantastic law schools. And I would love their bar pass rates and their employment. I love that. But I would say to people, and they're wonderful deans, great schools, but that's not who I want to be. And that's not who we should be. Right? That UMass is the public law school, and who knows what the future will hold. But it was never my aspiration to get a median LSAT of 165 at UMass Law. If we did that, I feel like we would have not been doing our job. Because again, then those students who get a 152 or a 150, which is, by the way, a perfectly good LSAT score, would not have had a public law school in the Commonwealth to go to, right? Because they mostly wouldn't have gotten in. because of the LSAT score. So, and I think that that's generally people agree with that at UMass. So what the school is on a great trajectory. We've done some incredible hiring. There's a really great crop of new, not yet young junior law professors who are super engaged. The mission is everything at that school, and that's again what attracted me, and it's continued. What I would love to see is I would love to see a school that remains an access school because that's what it should be and has a wonderful bar pass rate and good employment outcomes. Now that's asking for everything, but I'm the sort of person who kind of wants everything in that way. I'm ambitious for my organization. So, and I think it's on a good path. I really do think that is the future of the school. Incredible faculty, great, unbelievable staff, good support from the university, and a clear mission. And it's still a relatively new school. So it's still finding its legs a little bit. But I have every confidence that in 5 years, the school will be in exactly the position that I'm envisioning. Now, getting a great law dean will help with that. So again, please apply.
That's right. If you're listening, it's a great school on a terrific trajectory. We are also an access and opportunity school here at St. Mary's. And, there's room for our schools as well as the schools that you mentioned and maybe some of the higher ranked, more elite institutions. But I know that your law school was putting out fantastic attorneys committed to serving their communities just like we are. So you did the job for 3 years, and then we all received what we found to be, or I found to be on the dean's listserv, surprising news that you were leaving the dean position and you were moving into the CEO position for the Foundation of Natural Resources and Energy Law. So congratulations. I know this is new news, but if you can share with us a little bit about this new role, what prompted you to seek it, and what the organization will be doing in the coming years.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So, yeah, I really do love being a law dean. And I think, and I said this to everyone at UMass, and I meant it. Like, if I could move the school out west, I would still be the law dean if they still have UMass. Truly, I mean, because I really did love the job. But I'm from Montana. My wife of now 33 years as of 2 days from now is from Montana, and we grew up in the mountains, and we just really missed the mountains. It's not much more complicated than that in the sense that, when I took the job, my wife Lily was not sure about the move out east, and I said, let's give it 3 years. And she has supported me. She is the most wonderful partner and has supported me through all my many career changes, long suffering. But she said, great. And, she came to me a year ago and said, I want to go back home. I need to, be near my people, right? Her parents are out here and our children are now out here for the most part. So I started to look. This opportunity came across, and I was certainly open to doing more deaning, but then this opportunity came across, and I read the prospectus, and I don't want this to sound bad, but I read it and I thought, that's me. Like they literally wrote, I've never read a job prospectus where I thought, oh, how do they know that I should do this job? It was, we want somebody who's been an academic, who was practiced in the energy and natural resources field, who's written in the area, who knows the foundation. I was like, check. And also you get to live in Boulder, Colorado, which kind of a nice place to live. It's in the mountains. So I was excited about that. It's not just the location, though. It's the foundation. I knew the foundation. I first got to know it when it was the Rocky Mountain Mineral Law Foundation, its former name, when I was in law school at Lewis and Clark Law School, and I was focusing on environmental law and energy law, and attended conferences through the foundation, got scholarships to do that. This is now 30 years ago or more, hard to believe. And then was, as a young lawyer at a firm called Stoll Reeves in Portland, Oregon. Stoll Reeves is still a great partner of the foundation. I attended conferences. And so the foundation does sort of two things, right? We put out publications, sort of like sort of the Landman Legal Handbook, water law newsletter, oil and gas journal. So we do a lot of publications, all in this sort of renewable energy, all in the energy, natural resources area. We've been doing that. The foundation's been around for over 70 years. So it's a long established foundation. And then the other thing we do is we put on educational programs. So conferences, short courses, intensives, and we do that all over the country and frankly now all over the world. So it was a nice transition because it's still in the legal field and I'm still working with lawyers and practitioners and still thinking about legal education, but doing it from a different view, right, from the nonprofit world, which is really interesting. So thinking about the future of the foundation, and I've been thinking a lot about, we had my first board meeting on Friday, and I hope I didn't freak the board out too much, but I have a lot of ideas and I have a lot of energy. Some would say an annoying amount of energy. My wife would certainly say that, but I have a lot of thoughts about the foundation and what we can be. And I'm a big believer in continuous improvement, and I'm a big believer in never being satisfied, right? I just think it's important to keep growing. I feel like schools, foundations, companies are like sharks. They stop moving, they die, right? You got to keep moving. So the future for the foundation, one thing that I'm really interested in, and I've talked a lot with the board and with the staff and our membership about, is that, I think that our international, our global reach should increase. It really is becoming kind of more and more just one world, right? And everything is tied with everything else, certainly in the natural resources, energy, climate areas. We have a great Latin America program that's been going strong for several years, and I'll be going down there to visit with our partners in North America, Canada, the US, wonderful membership and programming. I'm interested in Africa. I'm interested in the Middle East. I'm interested in Asia Pacific and looking for opportunities for us, not all at once. I got to be careful not to freak people out, but I think with deliberate speed, looking at getting African lawyers engaged who do this kind of work and getting their perspective on what we do and how we do it and getting their input on how they do it in their country or their continent or whatever, right? And so we'll be doing a lot of that. And we have coming up in quick plug, we have an annual institute every year, usually around 1,000 people come. It's a mixture of, practicing lawyers, in-house counsel, academics. We have 35 constituent law schools who are members of the foundation. They each have a trustee. I used to be the trustee when I was at the University of Montana. We come together in Seattle, Washington this year, and that's in late July. Registration's still open on our website if you're interested. And it's a 3-day conference with papers and talks and networking opportunities. So we'll continue to do that and continue to grow the foundation smartly and do our part. The last thing I'll say about it is one of the things I love about the foundation is it's a big tent. And what I mean by that is we have lawyers from every different part of the country and from every political persuasion and from every viewpoint you can imagine. And there aren't a lot of organizations left that you can say that of, right? We've gotten so atomized in this world, and it is a wonderful thing that the foundation brings together under a common cause people who don't necessarily see the world the same way, right? Who don't vote the same way necessarily and who have different perspectives, but can come together in a spirit of collaboration and collegiality and find common ground and work together, right, on those things. That's increasingly rare and I think increasingly important. So one of the reasons I took the job was because it's a big tent. And I think that's kind of exciting. I look forward to that. I will tell a quick story that my wife and I are still giggling about. So when I took the job, president of the board, Joel Benson, who's an incredible guy. He's a partner at a firm called Davis Graham and Stubbs in Denver. He's the current president of the board. And he was telling me, and he's a friend, and he was telling me when I was announced, he got lots of nice feedback from people, and so did I. He also got some calls from people saying, so you're hiring this effete lefty academic from the East Coast to be the new CEO of the foundation, and is that the right move? And I was laughing because I spent the last 3 years sort of feeling like a country bumpkin in Massachusetts, and suddenly I'm this sort of lefty academic from the East. So anyway, you can't win, right? But it was funny sort of to think about that we all tend to generalize, right? And we make these assumptions about people, and the foundation is a good place to sort of challenge those assumptions and to find ways to work together in a spirit of collaboration, which again is increasingly important. So for all those reasons, I'm excited to be in the job I'm in. It is a different job than being a law dean. It has different challenges, but still challenging.
Well, that is tremendously exciting. Congratulations again on being named the CEO of the Foundation of Natural Resources and Energy Law, and on a great run as law school dean to do 3 years and to have that significant impact in just 3 years with the curricular overhaul in particular is very impressive. You know from being on the podcast before that I ask all my guests one final question, the same final question, and that is, what are your predictions for legal education in the coming decade? And certainly with your experience in the academy, you must have some thoughts. And so please share with us what your thoughts are.
I'm worried. I mean, to be speaking very frankly, I'm concerned. I'm concerned on a bunch of different levels. Well, let me start here. I think a law degree is the best degree you can get. I have had 4 careers with my law degree. I can't think of a better degree. And so I'm always bullish on people going to law school. All 3 of my children are either lawyers or in law school, so I'd be a hypocrite if I wasn't, right? I believe it. My wife's a lawyer, right? I practice what I preach. So law schools aren't going away. A law degree is a wonderful degree to get. It's ever more important. But I am worried. I'm worried about the employment market. I see it softening. I think it's going to continue to soften. We have had, as you know, record number of applicants over the last couple of years, and some law schools, mine included, have then increased the size of their classes. And I do worry about the legal market and what that's going to look like when those students are graduating from. I'm not predicting necessarily another 2008 type of situation, but I worry a lot about that actually, and whether those jobs are going to be there. And of course, AI and what that means for our profession. And I hear too much from lawyers is when AI comes, I'm like, no, it's here. It's
Oh,
happening.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's already happening. My daughter is a lawyer at a large law firm, and I talk to her often about it and just the impact. She's a 3rd-year associate. It's already having on her and her colleagues and what she's seeing, and it's here. And clients are wondering, why am I paying this much money for this memo? That the memos you and I wrote when we were young lawyers that were really important to our development, important to our professional development. So I am very worried about it. I'm worried about law schools. I think that we are going to see some law schools not be around. And I don't say that at all lightly, but I think the market, it's going to get, I think, kind of hard for law schools over the next several years. Now, again, that's not a reason not to be a law dean. In fact, I think it's a reason to be a law dean because we need you. We're going to need you now more than ever. But I have concerns about it. I have concerns about the challenges to academic freedom and to, frankly, freedom that we're all seeing in our country. And I don't mean this as a political statement, but I do think that any rational person looking at the world today will say that our basic freedoms are under threat. The ones that our country is built on and that we rely on, and the rule of law and democracy and full faith and credit. And those things are at risk. And how those things will impact the legal profession and young lawyers, again, it's sort of both things. It's going to get hard. I think it's going to get harder, and we've never needed you more. So go to law school. Despite all of that, be a law dean and go to law school. I'll end there.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sam. It's been a pleasure to talk with you this afternoon. If you've enjoyed my conversation with Sam Panarella, please seek out additional thought leaders in legal education and beyond on the Aspen Leading Edge podcast homepage or your favorite podcast channels. Thanks so much.